Hey English learners, welcome back to Real Easy English, your calm and friendly space where you can improve your English through real conversations that feel natural, simple, and meaningful.
Hi everyone, we're really glad you're here, and today's topic is something that affects almost every person every single day, even if we don't always stop and think about it clearly.
Yes, today we're talking about time, and more importantly, how to manage your time in a way that actually supports your life instead of slowly draining it.
Iman, can I say something a little dramatic before we begin?
I feel like I already know the answer, but go ahead.
I feel like many people are not actually busy. They are just distracted in a very consistent and very exhausting way.
That sounds dramatic, but also very true, because when you look closely, a lot of people spend hours doing things that don't really move their life forward.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, they feel tired but not satisfied, like they used their energy but not in the right direction.
And that feeling can be frustrating because you start asking yourself, where did my time go, even though you were active all day?
Yes, and this is where time management becomes important, not as a strict system or a rigid schedule, but as a way to become more intentional with how you spend your time.
Because time is one of the few things in life that you cannot get back. Once it is gone, it is gone. And that is why learning to use it wisely is so valuable.
But the problem is, many people think time management means doing more, working harder, or filling every minute with tasks, which can actually make things worse.
Yes, real time management is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters and reducing what does not.
So today, we're going to explore this slowly. We'll talk about why people feel like they are wasting time, what creates that feeling, and how you can start changing your habits step by step.
And as always, don't worry if you don't understand every word perfectly. Just relax, listen, and let your English grow naturally.
Iman, let me ask you something honestly. Have you ever had a day where you were busy from morning to night, but still felt like you didn't do anything important?
Yes, many times. And I think that is one of the most confusing feelings, because you are active but not productive in a meaningful way.
Exactly, and that usually happens when your time is filled with small, low-value activities that feel urgent but are not actually important.
Like checking your phone again and again, scrolling without thinking, or doing small tasks that don't really move your life forward.
Yes, and those activities are not always bad, but when they take too much time, they start replacing more meaningful things.
And over time, that creates a gap between what you want to do and what you actually do, which can feel frustrating and even disappointing.
So the real problem is not time itself, it is how we use it, and more importantly, how we lose it without noticing.
Yes, and losing time without awareness is one of the biggest challenges today because distractions are everywhere.
And they're designed to keep your attention for as long as possible, which makes it even harder to stay focused on your own priorities.
So maybe the first step in managing your time is not creating a perfect schedule, but simply becoming aware of where your time is going.
Yes, because awareness changes everything. When you start noticing your habits, your patterns, and your distractions, you can begin to make better choices.
And those better choices do not need to be perfect, they just need to be consistent.
Because small changes repeated every day can create big results over time.
In the next part, we'll talk about the biggest reasons people waste time and how those patterns develop in everyday life.
So stay with us, because this conversation might change the way you see your time completely.
So now that we understand that the real problem is not time itself, but how we use it, the next question becomes very important. Why do people actually waste so much time even when they know they should be doing something more meaningful?
Yes, because most people are not trying to waste their time on purpose. They usually have goals, plans, and things they want to do, but somehow they still end up feeling unproductive at the end of the day.
I think one of the biggest reasons is distraction, and not just small distractions, but constant, repeated interruptions that slowly break your focus and reduce your ability to concentrate deeply.
And the problem with distraction is that it often feels harmless in the moment, like checking your phone for a minute or watching one short video. But those small moments quickly add up.
Yes, because 1 minute becomes 10 minutes, and 10 minutes becomes an hour, and before you realize it, a large part of your day is gone.
Another important reason is lack of clarity, because when people are not clear about what they want to do, they often move from one activity to another without any real direction.
Yes, and when you don't have clear priorities, everything feels equally important, which makes it very hard to decide where to focus your time.
And when decisions become difficult, people often choose the easiest option, which is usually something quick, simple, and not very meaningful.
Another big reason is procrastination, which means delaying something important even when you know you should be doing it.
And procrastination is not always about laziness. Sometimes it happens because the task feels too big, too difficult, or too uncomfortable.
Yes, and when something feels overwhelming, the brain tries to avoid it, and instead, it chooses something easier that gives quick satisfaction.
Which creates a cycle, because the more you delay important tasks, the more pressure you feel, and the more likely you are to avoid them again.
Another reason people waste time is overthinking, because instead of starting a task, they spend too much time thinking about how to do it perfectly.
Yes, and this often leads to inaction, because when you are trying to make everything perfect, you delay starting, and time passes without progress.
And finally, one of the most important reasons is lack of energy, because when you feel tired, stressed, or mentally exhausted, it becomes much harder to focus and use your time effectively.
Yes, and in that state, people often choose low-energy activities like scrolling or watching videos because they don't have the mental strength to do something more demanding.
So when we look at all these reasons together, distraction, lack of clarity, procrastination, overthinking, and low energy, we can see that time waste is not random, it follows clear patterns.
And once you understand these patterns, you can begin to change them because awareness gives you the ability to make different choices.
So instead of asking, why am I wasting time, you can ask, which pattern is affecting me right now?
And that question is much more useful because it helps you understand the cause instead of just feeling frustrated.
In the next part, we will focus on practical strategies that can help you manage your time better and use it more effectively in your daily life.
So stay with us because now we move from understanding the problem to actually solving it.
So now that we clearly understand why people lose time through distraction, lack of clarity, procrastination, overthinking, and low energy, the next step is to talk about how to actually manage your time better in a way that feels realistic, simple, and sustainable.
Yes, because many people try to fix their time by creating very strict schedules or unrealistic plans, and after a few days, they feel tired, lose motivation, and go back to their old habits again.
That is very true. And that is why instead of trying to control every minute of your day, it is much more effective to focus on a few simple strategies that you can repeat consistently.
So let's start with the first and most important strategy, which is setting clear priorities. Because if you don't decide what matters most, your time will be filled with things that don't really matter.
Yes, and a simple way to do this is to choose 2 or 3 important tasks for your day, not 10 or 15, just a small number that you can realistically complete.
Because when your list is too long, it becomes stressful and confusing, but when it is short and clear, it becomes easier to focus and take action.
And once you have your priorities, the next step is to start with the most important task first, before you get distracted by smaller and easier activities.
Yes, because your energy is usually higher at the beginning of the day, and using that energy for important work can make a big difference.
The second strategy is to use time blocks, which means dividing your day into focused periods where you work on one task without interruption.
For example, you can work for 25 or 30 minutes, then take a short break, and then repeat the process again, which helps your mind stay fresh and focused.
And during those focused periods, it is very important to remove distractions, like putting your phone away, turning off unnecessary notifications, and creating a quiet environment.
because even small interruptions can break your concentration, and it often takes time to get back into focus again.
The third strategy is to make your tasks smaller, because when a task feels too big, your brain sees it as difficult, and that often leads to procrastination.
So instead of saying, I will study English for 2 hours, you can say, I will listen to one short podcast, which feels easier to start.
And once you start, it becomes much easier to continue, because action creates momentum.
Yes, and that is a very important idea because motivation often comes after you start, not before.
The fourth strategy is to plan your day in advance, even if it is just for a few minutes, because when you wake up with a clear plan, you spend less time deciding what to do.
And this reduces confusion and helps you move directly into action instead of wasting time thinking about where to begin.
Another important strategy is to accept that not every day will be perfect, because sometimes things go wrong, plans change, or your energy is lower than expected.
Yes, and instead of feeling frustrated or giving up, you can simply adjust your plan and continue with what you can do.
Because time management is not about perfection, it's about consistency and flexibility.
And one more thing that many people forget is the importance of rest, because without proper rest, your energy decreases, and it becomes harder to focus and use your time effectively.
Yes, rest is not a waste of time. It is part of productivity because it helps you recover and perform better later.
So when you combine these strategies, clear priorities, focused time blocks, smaller tasks, simple planning, flexibility, and proper rest, you create a system that supports your time instead of controlling it.
And the best part is that you can start with just 1 or 2 of these strategies and slowly add more as you become comfortable.
Because small, consistent improvements are much more powerful than big changes that do not last.
In the final part, we will bring everything together and talk about how to live a more intentional life, where your time is used in a way that truly matters to you.
So stay with us because this is where everything connects.
So now we've talked about why time gets wasted and how to manage it better with simple strategies, but now we arrive at a deeper and more important question. How do you actually use your time in a way that feels meaningful, intentional, and aligned with the kind of life you want to build?
Yes, because time management is not only about being productive or completing tasks. It is really about how you choose to spend your life, day by day, moment by moment, in ways that either move you forward or slowly keep you stuck.
And I think this is where many people feel something quietly uncomfortable, because deep down they know they are busy, but they are not always moving in the direction they truly want.
That feeling can be difficult to explain because everything looks normal from the outside, but inside there is a sense that something important is being delayed or ignored.
Yes, and that is why managing your time is not just about control. It's about honesty, because you have to ask yourself what actually matters to you. Not what looks good, not what others expect, but what truly feels important in your life.
And that question requires reflection, because without reflection, it is very easy to follow routines, habits, and expectations without ever questioning if they are right for you.
So maybe the most important shift is this. Instead of asking, how can I be more productive, you start asking, what is worth my time?
Yes, because not everything deserves your time, your energy, or your attention. And learning to say no to certain things is just as important as saying yes to the right things.
And this is where intentional living begins, when you start choosing your actions based on your values instead of reacting to everything around you.
Because when you live intentionally, your time becomes more focused, your decisions become clearer, and your days start to feel more meaningful.
Another important part of this is understanding that time is limited, and while that may sound obvious, many people live as if they have unlimited time to delay what matters.
Yes, and that is why people often say, I'll start later, or I'll do it someday, without realizing that those delays can slowly turn into years.
And that is where the phrase, don't waste your life, becomes real, not as pressure, but as a reminder that your time is valuable and deserves to be used wisely.
But it is also important to say that using your time wisely does not mean working all the time, because rest, relationships, and enjoyment are also important parts of a meaningful life.
Yes, balance is essential, because a life that is only focused on productivity can become stressful and exhausting, while a life without direction can feel empty.
So the goal is not perfection, it is balance. A balance between work and rest, between effort and enjoyment, between discipline and flexibility.
And when you find that balance, your time begins to feel more natural, less forced, and more connected to what actually matters.
So if someone is listening right now and feeling like they are wasting time or not using it well, what would be the first step you would suggest?
I would say start small and start honestly. Take a few minutes and ask yourself where your time is going and what you truly want to change without judging yourself too harshly.
Yes, because change becomes much easier when it comes from understanding instead of pressure.
And then choose one small action, not a big plan, just one simple step that moves you in the right direction.
Because one small action today is more powerful than a perfect plan that never starts.
And as you continue, you can slowly build better habits, better focus, and better awareness of how you use your time.
And over time, these small changes will create a bigger transformation, not just in your schedule, but in your life.
So remember, your time is your life, and how you spend it is how you live.
You don't need to change everything at once. Just begin, stay consistent, and keep moving forward step by step.
Thank you for listening, and we hope this episode helps you use your time in a more meaningful and intentional way.
And remember, you are not late. You are just starting. So take your time seriously, but also be kind to yourself in the process.
We'll see you in the next episode.
Keep learning, keep growing, and don't waste your life.